what's the sense for how the Trump administration will interface with these AI companies? Is it going to be kind of letting them have the keys to the kingdom? Is it going to be the type of incentivizing of infrastructure around AI as a whole to try and keep it in this high growth type environment where models aren't reaching that asymptote that you described? Like what's the outlook from the Trump camp on how tech broadly is going to take on this AI challenge?
Well, I think first you have to think about the story in AI has really been one of scale works. So scaling up these models, making them bigger and bigger, running them on more and more compute, using more and more energy to do that has worked so far. It's led to continuous improvements in these models. And like I was saying, that might be slowing down and that could be a major issue. But as far as the Trump administration interfacing with them, I think that maybe the biggest change is going to be that they're going to be pushing for building a lot more natural gas power plants than building just renewables, building wind and solar. There'll be a lot more natural gas, maybe more nuclear development as well, even though that's a much longer lead time. Like that's something that probably wouldn't even be completed until after Trump's term is over, right? Because it just takes so long to put those nuclear plants up. But I do think there will be much more natural. I think natural gas is a very interesting space right now for that reason, even though the prices are really low right now. I think that obviously they're going to have interactions with that. It's kind of interesting when you bring in the fact that Elon Musk runs one of these AI companies and XAI, and they have their own model that they're trying to build, and they're building data centers for that. And so maybe they have a little bit more of regulatory capture than they've gotten, compared to OpenAI in the past. There's definitely going to be national security questions. I bet that they're going to continue trying to put tariffs on a lot of these companies being able to sell chips and chip making equipment in Asia, in the Middle East, which is kind of sensible, but I don't know. We'll see whether that's good or bad for globalization. I don't know. It's impossible to really know exactly how they're going to interface with them, but I think it'll still be with a growth angle to it, and they're going to keep trying to build it out. I just wonder what the returns on investment are going to be for a lot of this AI stuff, and how much because right now OpenAI is losing billions of dollars a year, right? How do they turn that around? There's tons of questions here that just it's hard to know. And like there's a secular question as to how those companies are going to perform, at their individual microeconomic level, and there's the macro level of policy that allows for them to get rid of those bottlenecks that they have to deal with. So it's going to be it's probably going to be pretty similar, honestly, if the way I think about it. But I bet it comes down to the national security question, the energy question. Those are going to be the biggest things that the Trump administration works on.
I feel like for someone coming into this question, a little blind, the weave together of how energy policy affects AI and the development of these models, or even the space writ large, is not something that's easily tied together. My intuition is that it's related to the cooling that's needed to be done for these data centers. Is that correct? And how does natural gas play into the AI question?
Well, it's more so just that it takes electricity to run GPUs, right? These chips that are running the AI models that are that are training them, right? That are building out the actual connections between the neurons and the AI models. Like it takes energy to run those linear algebra operations that they run, the matrix operations on the GPUs. And one of the big bottlenecks for that has been, whether or not they can get enough power to add these new data centers. Like they want to build massive data centers, like much bigger than any data centers that we have today, right? They want to build data centers that are like 100 megawatts in terms of their usage of electricity. Right now, a huge data center might be 5 to 10 megawatts. And as far as natural gas goes, I mean, that's one of the main ways that we generate. It's the cheapest way to generate electricity in the United States, other than coal. But coal is obviously being relegated, and I don't think that we're going to have a comeback of Trump's clean coal mandate. I don't think that that's coming because it was never really a thing. But I do think that natural gas and running natural gas turbines to generate electricity is probably going to be like the top method that they choose to do that. And so I imagine they're going to try to build some of these large, gigantic data centers using natural gas plants with the idea that they're going to want to move it over to nuclear eventually. You can't really use renewables for a lot of these data centers because they need a constant base load of power. So they can't have like solar where it shines in the shines in the morning, it doesn't shine at night. They can't get power from it. You'd have to do it with some type of system where you have batteries built in. That's a lot more expensive, a lot more inefficient. And so natural gas turbines and nuclear end up being the best solutions. I mean, you could make an argument about hydrogen too, but no need to get into that. Point is that right now the main bottleneck for building those gigantic data centers is one, getting all the chips that you need because Nvidia has a shortage, and two, getting the power to power those plants because right now it just doesn't exist.
Doesn't that kind of remake where is desirable to even have those data centers in the first place? I mean, my understanding is that like there's like clusters across the U.S. One main one being in like Northern Virginia, but if it's so energy proximal and energy driven, it almost makes more sense to be closer to the generation source rather than just where telecommunications is traditionally flown through. Is that the case? And if so, is that is now the time to put a bunch of data centers in like West Texas?
That's happening to a certain extent, and the reason why that was happening is because of Bitcoin mining. And so people were, it's Bitcoin mining, similar idea there, right? You have to have electricity to power those chips and to mine the Bitcoin. And so it's interesting. A lot of these high performance computing companies that were previously crypto miners are now becoming AI data center companies, and like CoreWeave is the biggest example of one that did that. But you're right, there are clusters of data centers, and right now in like that Northern Virginia area where a lot of the nation's data centers are, like power prices have gone crazy, and they haven't been able to build anymore. There's like not much more capacity there. You've seen a lot of big tech companies do these deals. Like Microsoft did a deal with Constellation Energy where they agreed to reopen 3 Mile Island, and they were going to build a data center that was basically right next to it. Amazon did this deal with Talon to build a data center right next to their Susquehanna nuclear plant, and so that's been a popular trend in the nuclear world. Is either finding plants that just aren't being used anymore, or actually co-locating the data center with it and trying to surpass so these power companies, these merchant power companies, they have to pay an interconnection cost to the grid to get their power bought. And what a lot of the tech companies have done is they've tried to bypass that deal by doing what they call a behind the meter deal. I'm deep into this because of some stocks, but